Alright, so we're here for round 3, and our hand is pretty solid. So I guess we keep. I don't know. Don't really have too many other options. Maybe my opponent will wait a little bit, so... Only fair that it makes me wait a little bit. So, looks like we're holding open Spell Snare for turn 2, so I don't think we're going to do anything on turn 1. We're not going to fire off this probe just yet. If our mana goes unspent with Spell Snare, we can always Thought Scour ourselves, so we have a plan. We have a plan. And we also have a Robot Owl. Robot Owl is in the house. And here is a M14 Plains. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Now, there is a little play here with Thought Scour against Sensei's Divining Top, but we're not going to go for that. Mostly interested right now in just filling up my graveyard. And we hit a Therapy on our own, so that's great. That is just great. Swords of Plowshare is probably not great, because I think our opponent's playing Miracles. So, probe our opponent, get our snipping tool all ready. Here we go. And our graveyard is sufficiently stuffed for dig through time. Our opponent has a Pyroblast, so we're going to lead with Strix instead of one of our Snapcaster Mages. Those are a little more valuable. And now we probably get to play a fun little guessing game where Strix resolves, I Therapy my opponent, and he'll Brainstorm in response. Then we have to guess and see what our opponent left. I guess maybe what I should have done is just hold open for Spell Snare. Because our opponent couldn't counterbalance and Pyro. So that may have been a better play, because now we might just lose to this counterbalance lock. And I assume that is what my opponent is going to hide. Might just hide counterbalance and dig. So I'll probably name Swords to Plowshares, go for the Mentor next turn, and kind of go from there. But yeah, we should have left open the Spell Snare. We should have been a little more thoughtful. At the very least, I can make the same play next turn and still have Spell Snare available. So there's basically no reason to not do this. So now we might just lose game 1, but it is possible that we just resolve a Mentor and then go to 10 with that too. We'll see though. I do have the sneaking suspicion that I may have just thrown away the game. A little too feisty to go fire off my combo. So we will snip this. Pretty obvious what my opponent was going to hold there. I guess there was still a hope that my opponent would maybe not draw a land, but that is clearly not the case here. So Swords of Plowshares are down, Island is down, and we are basically all in on this Monastery Mentor. Dig Through Time is the top card for my opponent currently. And I think we can just get Scrubland, although I'm not sure that there are many white cards. Like, we're not going to be playing 2 white cards in a turn, so I think we can just get an Underground Sea. So hopefully no more Brainstorms, no 3 on top, no more Swords to Plowshares, and this Mentor can actually get some work done. It is certainly worth noting that my opponent kept the cards that I thought they were going to keep off the Brainstorm, which made therapying very easy. Perhaps, you know, since my opponent said something to me beforehand about knowing who I was, that, you know, maybe they should know that I'm going to be aware that they're probably going to Brainstorm back those 2 cards, so maybe they could have hidden the swords instead of the dig, maybe, because it was pretty unlikely I was going to name that. So now we have to figure out whether or not our opponent is actually going to keep their dig through time on top, and I don't think so. I think this is the turn where they actually want to dig. So I could try and fire mine off. Problem is, our opponent has a Pyroblast also. So it might be... I don't know. I can't play 2 spells this turn, which kind of stinks. Unless Robot Owl serves up a land. I feel like Snapcaster or Dig would get Pyroed. And if our Dig gets Pyroed, then our graveyard is very, very light. So I don't know. I feel like leading Robot Owl. That doesn't get in for much damage this turn, though. It's kind of unfortunate. It's also possible my opponent just has a 2 on top. Yeah, sure would be much better for me if my opponent did not have counterbalance in play. May have blown it. May have blown it. And Robot Owl gets countered. That's bad news too, but Robot Owl lives. Land! Land is great. So our opponent cannot cast Dig through time this turn because they use top in response to Robot Owl. But we are going to fire off a Dig end of turn, make our opponent use their mana to Pyro. And I think we just leave a Probe in the yard. Could also leave Thought Scour. That might be good. Thought Scour sets us up for future digs. So yeah, we'll just do that. Get some triggers going on here. Yield to all this nonsense. Opponent drew a Brainstorm, so that's really good. That's going to allow them to counter our Dig. Basically put back Terminus and Dig, and counterbalance our Dig, and then reshuffle with top, and then Terminus on our upkeep potentially. So that's bad news. It's very bad news. So the Terminus is not coming yet. Our opponent wants to wait until they have Pyroblast back up and probably significant mana untapped in order to play around like a Spell Pierce or something like that. So playing it a little slow and steady, but I do think that that is probably the correct call. So we're going to run out Snapcaster end of turn, try to flash back this Thought Scour, fill up our graveyard, maybe eventually cast Dig through time. And that just resolves, which is great. And here we could also Swords Robot Owl to get an extra prowess thing and then kind of force the issue here. force the Terminus to happen pretty much. And it is possible that if our opponent lets us go to our main phase, we could play a land and dig through time. Maybe find a Force of Will. Or 2 Force of Wills, I guess, is what we actually need. But no, our opponent is smart, is going to Terminus on upkeep. They now have a 1 on top. And a Pyroblast in hand. So we could try to dig in response. I don't feel like that really accomplishes much, since it will likely just get pyroed. So our opponent's going to draw top, play top, and then we're going to respond with Thoughtscour ourselves, and probably snap Thoughtscour as well. And it's possible our opponent... Yeah, I guess we should have done this in the... No... Yeah, it wouldn't really matter, right? Our opponent, if we did it in the draw step, the top would just be in their hand. They could still fetch in response. So since our opponent is willing to fetch away, I assume that dig is now in their hand. Okay, so now we have a force. So I guess we could cast dig through time. That might get pyroed. And then maybe we can force this top to get out of the lock. So our opponent is going to dig in response. That's okay. Fine with that happening. So our opponent still has Pyroblast that we know about and nothing else. So the dig in response to counterbalance trigger gives our opponent another shot to free counterbalance the dig. But now we know that there's a counterbalance on top, so we can allow this Pyroblast and then force the top, pitching a Spell Snare. And then hopefully our opponent does not have a Force of Will of their own. Or another top, I suppose. But yeah, it looks like force is happening. So that's pretty bad. Pretty bad. So we can probe here. We know their top card is a 2. They can put the top on top and counter the probe, but I don't feel like that's really worth it, because the same thing could happen next turn where I can maybe find a Force of Will for the top. So I think you just keep the lock in place to try and counter stuff that matters, but they found a 1-drop on top, so that's also pretty good. But we can play Snapcaster now and flashback our dig. And what do we want to leave? We're going to end up with a dig in our hand still, so I don't think we need to keep the dig. The 1-drops are not very likely to resolve. Neither is Unearth on Monastery Mentor. So I think it doesn't really matter all that much. But we'll keep a Monastery Mentor, I guess. Oh, we played this game so poorly. So we'll pick up Force Brainstorm. And I'm fine keeping those 5 cards on the bottom. And we'll see what happens here. Realistically, we're only down 1 resource. And we do have a clock in play with our opponent at 11. But they do have a swords on top, so they can get rid of the Snapcaster whenever they want, really. And we've gone through 2 Force of Wills and 3 digs, so we have our last dig in hand. And it's possible we might actually want to force the swords and try and take the Snapcaster all the way. It's kind of rough when our opponent has like a fetch land and everything. But you gotta do what you gotta do. And yeah, our opponent just takes it, so that's good. Definitely like seeing that. And our opponent finds another fetch. So now we could just dig right now and have force for the swords. I think that's worth doing. So top activation happens. If nothing good shows up, we might see a fetch lane get cracked here. But it looks like our dig is just going to resolve, so that's awesome. And I like this Monastery Mentor. I'm not sure I really like anything else, though. Like Snapcaster is reasonable since it's another threat. So I guess we just take that. Alright, so we let swords happen because we have a mentor. And we have 2 mentors now. So hopefully this doesn't mean that our opponent has a 3 on top, because that'd be really bad. That'd be like game over. Our opponent's stopping in response even though they know the top 3, so this probably means a 3 on top. Entreat the Angels. That is not good. Not good for us. Not good for us. There's some bad betas. We need our opponent to try and cast Entreat here, rather than just juggling this 3. But that does not appear to be what is going to happen. So we'll brainstorm in a turn here. Try and get him to put the top on top, or just let our brainstorm resolve. But it just has a 1 on top also. So we're kind of in the semi-soft lock part of the show. And this all could have been avoided if we played better on turn 2. Our opponent just drew the brainstorm. And just has a 2 on top also. Yeah, whatever. Alright, fine. You win. You want to counter all my spells, you big jerk? Fine. You're not a big jerk. I'm just kidding. You're great. Alright. I kind of like all the forces. They seem pretty nice, and it seems like it's pretty easy for me to make that happen and not be too upset about it, even though we're down cards, because we can make up those cards in other ways, like Snapcaster Strix, etc., etc. So now we need to cut one more card. Bringing in the second Surgical, which we did not do last round, but I feel like it could end up being pretty good. Could certainly be wrong, though. Definitely don't want to draw multiples of these. But I do feel like knocking out their Terminuses is a pretty easy way to win. Like, even if Mentor gets swords, I might just make a couple monks and then that's game. So, things I'm considering are a Therapy of Strix or a Thought Scour. Man, I like the Strix. Could see doing without multiple therapies. Multiples seem pretty bad to draw, especially if our opponent has a Sensei's Divining Top. Alright. One of these hands, one of these one-landers with a cantrip on the play is kind of bad. But we do have a Thought Scour and a Null Rod. Null Rod's pretty important. I'm just going to keep. I do think that this hand is pretty risky. We just have so many like redraws, though. It's like kind of tough to not keep. I do think this deck should have another land, though. Oop, not white mana. White mana does not work. That's not good. It's possible I should be Thought Scouring my opponent if I had like enough lands and Surgical. Land, please. Would like to Null Rod. Thank you. Damn it. Damn it. Now we are simply dead. Simply the deadest. Crap. Crap. What is happening? What is happening? Besides us just getting annihilated. I think we discard Council's Judgment. Robot Owl is going to be important for therapy. We're probably going to Surgical something at some point to let us look at our opponent's hand. And we're going to have a full graveyard for digs, so I think we like all these other cards better. Well, this is just a joke. Punt one game, Mana Screw the other. Although the Mana Screw could also be construed as a punt. So, not very fun games, and I apologize. A land! Hello, land. Hello, Robot Owl, my old friend. Yeah, sure, man. Go nuts. Go nuts. Hand is super weird. Good luck taking something. See, taking like the Null Rod. Depends on what my opponent's plans are, though. Hope they take Surgical, because that card is pretty bad right now with our opponent having no graveyard. Them taking Dig would also be kind of poor for me, because I kind of want that. Oh, we pick up a Probe, so that's not bad. It's the combo with our Therapy. Possibly our Surgical. Lets us know if the coast is clear for Null Rod also. Hase is a card that we cannot beat. So that's bad. It's bad for us. Might be able to overpower it if we can get rid of these pesky Terminuses. Immediate Probe. That's a lot of weirdness. So many Vendilions. Alright. So Brainstorm is a thing that exists. I'm going to Therapy Terminus, potentially. So this is going to be cool. This is going to be really cool. Brainstorm in response. Awesome. Now check this out. Check this out. Check this out. This is going to be great. Still in response to my Therapy, Thought Scour you to see what you brainstormed back. And now I know what to Therapy you for. Guess we're naming Supreme Verdict. Oh, you still have a Terminus. That's fine, because we're going to Surgical your Terminuses. So, top mountain click Terminus. Do we pay mana for this? Is my question. I think so. Get out. All of your sweepers, get out. Little snippy snip, everything that's going on here. Make sure we... Oh, gotta get all those Terminuses out of there. Alright, all the Termini are gone. Our opponent has no more sweepers. They do have a Sulfur Elemental, though. Wow. Wowie, wow, wow. So, Vendilion, Top, Mountain are left. So, our opponent may attack us. I am not going to block. That would just be foolish. So, our opponent can just play out their other Vendilion. Mountain is gone. So Top and Vendilion as potential things. Yeah, we're taking that. We don't care. We need the Mentor in the house. That's what we need. Possible that our opponent Vendilions us in response to this. Maybe we should have just played the fetch land and then played the Mentor. But then it could possibly get swords in response to our probe and whatnot. So I didn't really want that to happen. Resolve? Resolve. Alright. Alright. Cast just for mana, I think. conservative. But I don't really want to pay the 2 life when our opponent has a bunch of flyers. Flusterstorm, how many of those? 2? That's fine. It's okay. I think we attack Hase, and then we therapy other Vendilion Click. It might be gone. I have faith that it's still there. Vendilion, Reb, Delta. Beautiful. Alright. So now we have to race these flyers in this Hase. Plan's kind of coming together, actually, despite facing down an active Jace. Perhaps we should be less inclined to keep Sketchy to bad hands. Oh, Vendilion stays on defense, eh? That's adorable. Let's jam Null Rod, which conveniently triggers prowess. Always yield. Always yield. So no Sulfur Elemental, that's what we need. Brainstorm response, sure. Puppy, come on now. Come on now. Alright, Null Rod is in. So our opponent still has Reb open. So we can't Snapcaster. We can send our 2 tokens at Jace to get that out of there. And Delta gets sacrificed. Okay. Opponent does not want to trade. Interesting. Interesting. Wonder if we trade the Snapcaster for Reb. End of turn. What is this? Entreat? Alright. Entreat for 2. So maybe we want to just snap dig on our turn. That seems like the better course of action. Opponent can attack us down to 10, and then we're lethaled next turn if we don't do anything. So does fetching change the clock at all? I don't think so. Swords on top. Alright. So I think dig is the best one. And then I guess we're trying to find Robot Owl. I guess our opponent has swords, though. I don't think we can muster up enough to get through here. Oh, there's Robot Owl. Doesn't do enough, though. So what if we take Pro Brainstorm? Alternatively, what if we take another Dig and a Probe? So these are all 2s. Our opponent goes block, block. Well, no. What do we need to make our opponent chump? That's the real question. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 17. So we're not even close to lethal. This is so bad. If we take Dig Probe, we could potentially find our last probe, the Case Probe. But then we've paid so much life that it probably doesn't matter. Guess we could find Force of Will. And a blue card. Perhaps force our own probe. We did no such thing. So we're turn short, I think. Do I have a 0-mana instant? Do I have Surgical? That's the question. If I found another Surgical, do you think you have to block? Even then, I'm still dead, so it doesn't really matter. I think you should probably block, seeing as how I'm tapped out and can't have anything. So we messed up game 1. This game, we skipped our land drop for far too long. And by the time... oh, man, I wish I had Surgical. That would have been so great. By the time we got anything going, it was far too late. But Miracles does not seem that bad. We just need to add a land and not keep as bad of hands. So, there you go.